At 0930 hours on February 20th, 1944, Hauptmann Hans Joachim Marseille's successor in spirit, a confident young Staffelkapitän named Oberleutnant Dieter Hübner, stood on the freezing observation deck of Luftwaffe Jagdgeschwader 27's forward airfield near Berlin. The bitter winter wind howled across the snow-covered tarmac, carrying the sharp tang of high-octane fuel and hot engine oil. Mechanics in thick greatcoats scurried around sleek Messerschmitt Bf-109 G6s and Focke-Wulf FW-190 A8s, their breath freezing in white clouds. Somewhere far to the west, above the English Channel, the Americans were forming up. Hübner could not see them yet through the low clouds, but he knew they were coming. It did not matter. They would not be there for long. Hübner had studied his enemy for years. He knew what every Luftwaffe officer knew about American fighter planes. They were toys, pampered by Detroit assembly lines and Hollywood dreams, built by men who had never heard a cannon shell rip through aluminum. They had no warrior tradition, no iron discipline, no willingness to die for the sky. German intelligence assessments were blunt. The new long-range escort fighter the Americans called the P-51 Mustang was, in their exact words, impossible. Impossible to reach Berlin and return on internal fuel alone. Impossible for such a light, almost delicate-looking design to survive against the cannon-armed giants of the Reich. Hübner himself had laughed in the briefing room the night before, calling the Mustang a pretty American toy that would shatter like glass the moment a single 20mm shell touched it. His pilots needed no reassurance. They were veterans of the Eastern Front and the Channel battles, men who had torn apart Spitfires and Yak-9s by the hundreds. They had never known defeat in the air when the odds were even. The Reichsmarshal had promised them no single-engined American fighter could ever escort the heavy bombers all the way to the heart of Germany. Hübner checked his leather gloves and scarf one final time. Today his Bf-109 would taste American blood. What happened over the next 7 days would shatter everything the Luftwaffe believed about American air power. By the time Big Week ended on February 25th, the Luftwaffe would lose more than 500 aircraft and over 250 irreplaceable pilots. The myth of German invincibility in the skies, built through 4 years of unbroken victories from Poland to the gates of Moscow, would lie broken in the frozen wreckage scattered across the Reich. The story of how this impossible toy plane humbled the Luftwaffe begins not over Berlin, but 5,500 miles away in a small design shed in Inglewood, California, in the spring of 1940. Britain stood alone, desperate for fighters. The British Purchasing Commission begged North American Aviation to license build Curtiss P-40 Warhawks. Instead, chief designer Edgar Schmood and his team proposed something radical, a brand new fighter with laminar-flow wings that sliced through the air like a knife. The prototype NA-73X was rolled out in just 117 days. The British called it the Mustang. Early models used the Allison V1710 engine and performed brilliantly at low altitude, but faded above 15,000 feet. Exactly where the heavy bombers needed protection. German spies dismissed the reports. Another clumsy American experiment, a toy for low-level work only. But the RAF had a secret weapon. They mated the Mustang airframe with the legendary Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, the same power plant that made the Spitfire a legend. Overnight, the P-51B and later P-51D became a monster. 440 miles per hour at 30,000 feet, a combat radius of over 1,000 miles with drop tanks, 6.5 caliber machine guns that could chew through anything. American pilots who flew it said it handled like a dream and could outturn, outdive, and outclimb anything the Germans had at altitude. Luftwaffe intelligence officers read the captured reports and laughed. Impossible, they wrote in official assessments. No single-engine fighter can carry enough fuel for such range without becoming a flying fuel tank that burns like a torch. They were wrong, catastrophically wrong. By late 1943, the first Mustang groups of the U.S. 8th Air Force arrived in England. German high command still believed their own propaganda. Their fighters were superior. Their pilots were the best in the world. The Americans were soft, raised on jazz, movies, and Coca-Cola. The Mustang was just another pretty toy that would run out of fuel halfway to Berlin and be easy meat for the experts. On the morning of February 20th, 1944, more than 1,000 American heavy bombers lifted off from English bases, escorted by swarms of P-51 Mustangs for the first time all the way to deep targets inside Germany. The Luftwaffe scrambled everything. Over 500 fighters rose to meet them. When the sleek silver Mustangs appeared high above the bomber streams, diving out of the sun with their bubble canopies flashing and Merlin engines roaring, German pilots could not believe their eyes. These toys were not turning back at the German border. They were staying with the bombers all the way to the target, and they were hungry. Among the Mustang pilots that day was 23-year-old Captain Don Gentile from Piqua, Ohio, a former Eagle Squadron volunteer who had already tasted combat in North Africa. Gentile flew his personal P-51D Shangri-La, its nose painted with a fierce shark mouth. Before the war, he had pumped gas and dreamed of flying. Now, over the snowy forests of Germany, he spotted a formation of FW-190s climbing to attack the bombers. In one screaming dive, he closed the distance, his 650s hammering. 2 German fighters exploded in fireballs before they even knew he was there. His wingman, Lieutenant John Godfrey, took down 2 more. The toy plane had just become a nightmare. For 7 straight days, the slaughter continued. Mustang pilots like Robin Olds, Bud Anderson, and Chuck Yeager, yes, the same Yeager who would later break the sound barrier, hunted the Luftwaffe across the Reich. They could loiter for hours, bounce the Germans from above, and still make it home. German pilots who had once laughed at the reports now screamed over the radio, "Achtung, Mustangs!" but it was too late. By the end of Big Week, the Luftwaffe had lost hundreds of fighters and hundreds of its best pilots, men who could never be replaced. Entire Geschwader were gutted. The Americans lost bombers too, but the Mustangs had done what German intelligence had called impossible. They had taken control of the daylight skies over Germany. The toy American plane that the Germans had dismissed as a joke had just shot down hundreds of the Reich's finest aircraft and broken the back of the Luftwaffe forever. From that moment on, the bombers flew deeper and deeper. The fighters escorted them all the way to Berlin, and the myth of German aerial supremacy lay shattered on the frozen ground below. The war in the air was never the same again.